Welcome, everyone, to the Art of Approach podcast. My name is Tim Bray, and I am a dating coach and approach coach. And I have my co-host, Will Mulvaney, on the line with me today. And he's a current student who is also developing his skills as being a coach in this space as well. These series of podcasts are an extension of our program, The Art of Approach. You can find out more about this coaching program at www.theartofapproach.com. So our basic formula is that we are going to be reviewing 3 types of media that's out there in the wild on the internet. And this media is dating advice, different date coaching kind of concepts, and we're going to critique it to see if it's addressing the root of the problem rather than the symptoms, so that we can fully understand why we struggle with all these different problems. So we're first gonna review an Instagram reel and then a Reddit post, and then we're gonna take a question from our community and see if we can answer something from them. All right, Will, let's get it going.
All right. Instagram first. Okay. I'll go ahead and put.
To compliment a woman that you like. Fellas, if you want to compliment a woman that you like, you want to stay away from saying things that every other freaking dude is saying. Okay? Things about her looks, saying, "Oh my God, you're so gorgeous," or "I love your legs," might sound like good compliments to you, but I guarantee you're not the first guy who said those things. And most of the guys who say those things are not anyone she wants to be around. So find something about her that she's actually done work towards, something like, maybe she's spent a long time putting her outfit together. Okay. Making sure that, her hat matches the rest of her outfit or whatever. You could say, "I like the way your hat matches the rest of your outfit." Or if you see her do something, compliment her on that. A great compliment might be like, "Hey, I love the way that you talk to that older woman," or "I love the way that you help that older woman cross the street." Something that you really notice that most people wouldn't have taken the time to notice. That's a great compliment.
All right.
Good one.
What do you think, Tim?
Well, this is just another kind of mixed bag. It's like there's some stuff that I agree with, some stuff that I'm questioning for sure. So the first thing, I guess, that I'll just address in no specific order is that, yeah, it's really great to compliment a girl on something you notice, as long as you notice it. The problem is that sometimes these dating advice things pop up in your feed, and you kind of feel like there's maybe one way of doing it or 2 ways of doing it. When I've seen these kind of posts in the past, I've just been thinking about strategy. I haven't been really thinking about what it actually means to really notice. So it could kind of set somebody up to potentially, I don't know, fake a notice, if that makes any sense, or go out of their authenticity to notice something without actually really being in a place of wanting to notice. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, like you could totally make up, like you see someone do something and you didn't really care, you didn't admire it at all, but then you just kind of, you're like, "Oh, this is the thing I could notice. I'll make that."
Yeah, exactly. Like, I have to find something to notice about this person,
Yeah.
But if you're authentically noticing it, and that's the brilliant thing about doing that is because it's acknowledging that women, a lot of women, put a lot of effort into their appearance, and they actually really do care. I mean, fucking guys go out of their house in socks and sandals, but a lot of women do really put a lot of effort into it. It's a form of self-expression. It's a form of presenting themselves in the world. And yeah, if you notice those things, it's going to show it's going to show them that there's something that you're seeing that not everybody else is seeing. So yeah, if you actually do genuinely notice something about somebody, and the thing is that you can notice something about somebody that you're attracted to if you actually take the time to be centered and to be mindful about your current environment. So it's not something you have to force. You can actually get into a state. We talk about it in our program, in our framework of attraction that we call the lens of beauty. there's a state that you can get into where you can notice these things about people. And it's important for you to notice those things because you want to understand why you're attracted to somebody. What is it about them? Like, if you know that, it's going to give you so much more to work with, and you're going to have so much more of an impact when you go up and approach them.
Yeah. And like, if you think someone's gorgeous, that's like he kind of puts that down as a compliment, but I don't think, I think the real thing here is whether or not it's a genuine compliment, whether you mean it or not.
Right. And going back to what he said earlier, you can go up and say a woman is beautiful and have it have an incredible impact if it's coming from an authentic place. The problem that women have to deal with is that there's a lot of inauthentic, you're beautiful, you're really pretty, you look amazing today, all of that stuff. There's a lot of inauthentic compliments like that out there. But if yours is authentic, it's going to stand out. It's going to be different.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about this kind of framework of like putting yourself up against the competition? What do you think about that, Tim? Like thinking of ways to stand out. Do you think that's a good way to come at this?
Trying to, again, I feel like there's a common pattern that's emerging in like every podcast where we're addressing these motivations that guys have to stand, like for instance, to stand out, and that's actually making them not stand out by trying to do something that they don't feel is natural from them. So the way you stand out is by doing what's natural to you.
Right. And not trying to stand out. Because then, yeah, it's funny.
Because if you think about it, trying to stand out does not sound like a completed task, right?
No.
Like you go up to a girl trying to stand out, you're not there. You're not actually standing out. You're like somewhere in this like murky kind of area, right? So just stand out. Just stand out by being completely true to your desires. So if you see a woman that's beautiful, you say, "Hey, I had to stop you. You look so beautiful. I had to tell you that. I don't have any intentions of needing to have a date with you. All I wanted to let you know is that is what I saw. You need to hear that. You need to know you're beautiful. Beauty needs a witness." Mic drop.
Yeah, totally. As soon as you start trying to stand out, then you're right. It pulls you out of the moment. Because now you are attempting to be something rather than just being.
Yes, exactly.
And you are going to get in your head and no longer be there in the approach.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so I think this one it's good advice, like to notice things, but don't take it as like a rule of like this is how you compliment.
Yes.
I think
just make sure your
rule is make it genuine.
Yeah. Make sure you're coming from an authentic place.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. So we can go ahead and move on to Reddit. And as of last podcast, we will be linking these so that the question asker will get to see what we say.
Yes.
Okay. So this one was titled, "Girl showed a ton of interest at first and is now flaky. How do I proceed?" We went on 2 dates. They went incredibly well. 2 of the best dates I've ever been on. She dropped so many compliments on me, was incredibly flirtatious and playful. We have a lot in common and truly seem to have excellent compatibility in terms of our interests and beliefs. Second date, she slept with me, but we didn't go all the way. We hung out the next day, went on a hike specifically because we both love the outdoors. At the end of the day, she told me she had made her decision about wanting to get off the app we met on, basically signaling she wanted to move into a relationship. I told her I wanted to wait until third date, and she acted like that had been her idea all along, but went along with it. We had another date planned for Thursday. She got sick, though, for real, in parentheses. Since then, she snapped me and texted me pics a couple of times and asked me about my day, etc., but turned down my invitation to hang out on New Year's Eve and also ignored me when I asked if she wanted to talk on the phone. Haven't heard from her in 24 hours. She's gorgeous, gets lots of attention, but I'm fairly confident that I check off a lot of boxes for her, so I'd like to think that I wasn't just a flavor of the week, but maybe I was. Do I totally move on because I missed my chance, or do I move into some kind of long-range mode with her? Do I wait for her to reach out first again? Do I ask her on another date? Thanks. All right. Tim, what do you think? What's your advice for this guy?
I think his listening skills and his story making skills need to be improved a little bit. And it was so interesting because he was actually getting some really good feedback from the community. And somebody also, I didn't read the comments ahead of time, and I noticed that somebody had my same kind of comments too, addressing the decision for her to want to get off the apps, basically signaling she wanted to move into a relationship. You say? Yeah. What is that all about? You know? So, you know, he's making some pretty elaborate stories.
It's a big jump.
You know, again, maybe he got other signals that he just didn't mention. I don't know. I want to give him a little credit. But essentially, you know, when I'm hearing this, I'm hearing, you know, a topic that maybe we'll get into a little later in the podcast, listening from a place of nothing. He's listening from a place of something, that's for sure, because he's listening. And he basically, when you're the concept of listening from a place of nothing, something that I ripped from Landmark Forum, when you're doing that, you're listening with a motivation, with an agenda that you have in mind. So you're essentially, in the background, you have a narrative that's running, and everything you're hearing from somebody else is being interpreted in that narrative, in the context of that narrative. So if the narrative is, we get along incredibly well, she drops so many compliments on me, incredibly flirtatious. So therefore, I'm convinced that, and because I like her, I want that narrative to come true, that she's like into me, you know, like that's the narrative I want. So I'm going to run that in the background. And then when I hear her say she wants to get off dating apps, well, that fits right into my narrative that she's totally into me. So she must want to get in a relationship. And then I love that I told her I wanted to wait until the third date. And then she acted like that was her idea all along. I'm also just kind of curious why the third. What's with the third date? I don't quite.
Is he talking about waiting for a relationship or waiting for sex?
That's what I'm. Yeah, that's a good. I hadn't thought about the sex part. Maybe, you know.
I mean, I think it sounds what I don't know.
Maybe that's what. Maybe it is sex. I hope it wasn't thinking that, like, if we have a third date, maybe I'll consider getting into a relationship with you. I hope that's not the case. And you know, but I think it is good that people sometimes have boundaries around when they're willing to be intimate, and I think that that's reasonable and respectful. So if that's what he was thinking, I guess that's fine. But yeah, he was listening from a place that was going to reinforce his narratives that she's really into him, that she wants to be into a relationship, and that's causing the turmoil. So on these dates, everyone, we need to be listening from a place where we don't have those narratives in the background. We need to be completely open-minded. We need to embrace uncertainty, that somebody can easily just be a charismatic person that makes you feel seen, accepted, might be flirtatious, but may not want to be in a relationship with you nonetheless. So just listening from a place of nothing gives you that freedom to act authentically and present in the moment without having to catch yourself up into these kind of narratives that are going to be popping up along the way.
Yeah, I definitely think this guy needs to just kind of relax a little. And he's like talking about these great dates he had. So I would challenge him to just like look back on those dates as like a good thing that happened to him, and then let it be that, and like make it clear that you want to keep seeing her. Like there's no, it's very unclear. Like it's the way he's talking sounds like she's like moved on. But it's been like 24 hours. Like that's one day. That's not a lot of time at all.
But you also understand that because of this, you know, I can see this narrative that he has.
Mhm.
You know, I can
Yep.
see it, and it's brought him from a place of, you know, feeling that all of the charm that she was projecting in the date somehow, you know, somehow translates to a connection. And maybe there is a connection there, but it may not be the type of connection that she actually thinks that they have. And because this narrative keeps getting built up and built up to the point where he finds this one thing that she says about dumping the dating apps, which, you know, could be for a number of reasons why she wants to dump the dating apps. Maybe she is dating a number of dudes, or maybe she just doesn't want to deal with the bullshit on there. But for some reason, he's incorporated that into his story. So now it's built up to this point where he's convinced that she wants to have a relationship. And if you're convinced that somebody wants to have a relationship with you and they ghost you for 24 hours, that would make total sense that she's just completely not interested in you at that point, or that she is technically ghosting. But it's related to the story that he's created. That could all just be happenstance. Like within 24 hours, you don't think that people just get like busy, especially around the holidays, or not know how to address somebody that's coming in there with that kind of powerful story in the background? Because she's probably picked up on the fact that he feels that way about her. I remember I had this one instance I'll never forget. There was this really gorgeous girl that I was dating very briefly, and we slept together, and I really, really loved it. Like I really was feeling fantastic stuff about her. And I remember I invited her over to like watch a movie at my house, and we didn't end up continuing. Well, like that night I don't think we had sex, but we were just kind of like cuddling on the couch and having a good time. And then after that I never heard from her again. And it just kind of makes me look back and think about how I was crushing on her so hard, but I was also not really noticing where she was coming from. And I think that she just was looking for a hookup. But it totally turned her away because of that particular energy and that narrative that I was like, I want this girl to like me. I really like this girl a lot. So yeah, that's kind of the consequence of that.
Yeah. So a bit of attachment to outcome.
A lot of attachment to outcome I'm seeing here. I think he needs to take a step back for sure, and he needs to reevaluate his narratives and come up with some new ones that he just doesn't.
Maybe he should consider getting off dating apps as well, because it sounds like, I don't know. I think he should get out into dating more, and I'm guessing it has been happening on the dating apps. If this like 2-date situation has come up, where he's like all in already. So I would definitely recommend he gets out there a little bit. And then also, like what we're going to talk about later is getting through, like realizing the dating period as that, and not rushing it, getting into a relationship too quick. Yeah.
And okay, so there's another really big theme here that I want to point out as well. Okay. This might be difficult to explain. He had a fantastic 2 dates. Really, really well. Like, you know, there was something about her that really seemed to be something that really jived with him, something that really worked with him. And he also mentioned that she's really, really beautiful too. So his attraction level towards her is really high. Now, there's 2 ways you can go with that. One is by feeling like this is something you're not going to ever have again. with anybody else, which is kind of our default sort of nature when
Yep.
when we're around someone that really inspires us to this kind of degree. And to be put into a place where we're really wanting to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that we somehow sustain this relationship because it's something that's so powerful to us. Or we can go another route, and that is accept the fact that her relationship to you, the way that she affected you is actually your potential and is actually not something that's dependent upon her. Okay? So I guess really what it comes down to is being in the place where you are allowing yourself to be inspired and to be treated the way that she treated you on those dates with other people, knowing that you have that capacity to be in the world and have that with many other people too. The problem is that when we find someone that really moves us like this, we immediately go into a sort of defensive crouch and wanting to like hoard and control that that relationship in our world. And that brings us a number of notches down. It takes us away from our true potential in relationships. So I guess really maybe like a story that kind of just brings this all around is I had this relationship with this girl for maybe we were seeing each other for a couple weeks, and I was so intimidated by her beauty. She was a fucking ballerina. She was so gorgeous. And we had a lot of fun together. But I would every step along the way, I was totally intimidated by how beautiful she was. And she, in my mind, she was like this girl that only like higher tiered men get to date. You know, that's the story I had in my head. And so just every time I would see her, I would just have that going in the background. I'm feeling very insecure. And I'd somehow just like push myself into the moment, and then I would have a lot of fun with her. But you know, it only lasted for 2 weeks, no surprise. And instead of feeling like I had just created a self-fulfilling prophecy with my unworthiness to be able to spend time with a gorgeous woman like that, I thought about it in terms of like the moments in my life that I get to have in this world, and about how, yeah, we only got to date for a couple weeks, but I got to date somebody really beautiful who was really inspiring and really fun to be around. And that's mine. Like I get to have that. Like I get to know that I got to have that experience, even though I didn't feel worthy of having it at the time. I was worthy of having it for that specific amount of time. So the fact that this guy got to go on a date with an amazing woman is what it sounds like to me. Like, just own that. And if she doesn't get back to you, still own that. Just because relationships end doesn't mean that we weren't worthy of having them.
Right. Yeah, it feels like when the relationship ends that you're losing everything with it. But that's such a good point. Like you have those moments. That's all, you know, no one can take that from you.
Right.
And I can totally relate to the unworthy feeling because I have that right now. There's a girl I want to talk to, and I totally have that feeling that I'm like, I'm not the kind of guy, but I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
You are the kind of guy, Will. I can see it.
Thank you, Tim. I really liked what you said about him realizing that like the feelings he had on the date, like they don't have to be specific to this person. And someone had told me that recently. They were like, you know, when you're around someone that makes you happy, like that happiness is your happiness. It's just that they somehow brought it out. So realizing, I mean, it's fucking hard to do when you're like going through a breakup, and it feels like, oh, like that's it for happiness for me. I'm done with that. But having that not like that understanding of, this person made me feel this way. That doesn't mean that, no one else will ever make me feel that way, because I felt it. Therefore, I can feel it. I'll feel it in the future. So great point with that. And this guy should kind of move forward with that, regardless of what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's your life. You just went on an amazing date just because, you might have done some things to kind of maybe sabotage it. Sort of.
Yeah.
Totally understandable, by the way. Totally reasonable reactions. This is the way that we're built. But you still got to have an amazing 2 dates. So just don't like go backwards from there. Go forwards from there. Like continue having these kind of dates and just start listening from a place of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully this guy gets this, and he curious to see what he'll think. All right. Anything else on that one, Tim?
Nope.
Cool. Okay. Now we have one from the community. This is coming from Dylan, who has been around for a while doing, our meetups and as a client of Tim's. And his question is, how can I avoid hesitation when approaching women and always waiting, trying to find the perfect opportunity to talk to them? And this is such a good question. Because it is like,
yeah,
I've gone through this. I'm sure you have, Tim. I'm sure every guy who's done this before has.
The old perfect opportunity.
Yep.
Where are my perfect opportunities? I love Dylan, and like I just wanna send my love out to him while we're talking about this, because he's such a sweet guy, and I know he's so affixed to this perfect opportunity thing. He's made some strides in trying to get out of that kind of mindset, but it is a very prevalent mindset, and I know that I have certainly suffered with it as well. And I believe we talked about a little bit more about this in the last episode about with the go back, when we were talking about the go back, and about how the the amount of weight that comes on us when we think that there is a perfect opportunity is absolutely earth-shatteringly overwhelming. Okay, I mean, the perfect opportunity, think about what that holds inside of it. Not only is it going to be the perfect opportunity that we're looking for, but from the perfect opportunity must be the perfect interaction, and must be the perfect like invitation to a date, and then the perfect first date. I mean, everything is perfect. And my God, that's incredibly stressful, and no wonder it makes people want to hide under their bed. Yeah, there is absolutely never going to be a perfect opportunity, and therein lies the loop that we continue to put on ourselves. And at the heart of wanting to create this mindset, wanting to create the stories that come around it, is a very, very tight grip on wanting to have certainty. And as we talked about the last episode, there's no such thing about that in the dating world. And the sooner we start to really respect that and honor that, we're just going to keep getting stuck in these kinds of loops. So no perfect opportunity. In fact, the thing that we probably dread the most, which we talked about last episode, like missing out on our chance and then going back, the thing that we actually fear the most is probably more effective than actually doing it right when we say it, because it allows us to open up, be vulnerable, be human. What was the reason I had to go back when I missed my perfect opportunity? I was scared. And who can't relate to fucking fear? It's the most relatable topic on planet Earth. And there's a very good reason why you would be afraid. It's the reason that keeps so many men these days of just not going up and approaching. So what therein lies when you embrace opportunity, when you embrace uncertainty, you allow yourself to be imperfect, you allow that interaction to be imperfect, it becomes perfect.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, there's like a that's kind of what I was thinking. Like the opportunity you create is like the perfect one. Like I'm thinking of like, say you're at the gym and you see someone, and a lot of the advice I've seen is like wait until they're done and they leave and then talk to them on your way out. But I feel like you could just go in and talk to them while they're still working out and like say something like that. Like, I'm sorry to interrupt you, or like, I had to interrupt you. That kind of thing, rather than trying to like cultivate this perfect um opportunity to talk to this person. Like, just make the opportunity, take the one you have. And that's the exact same with the go back. Is like, it's not the perfect opportunity of like the happenstance of you walking across from each other. It's like there's an opportunity. It's perfect if you take it. Go take it.
Yeah. We
So
see. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're
there's
still
a lot of
thinking.
power in like embracing the imperfection of what you're doing, and calling it out if it is like something where you're like, oh, I went past you. I had the perfect opportunity, but I got nervous. Now I'm back.
Right. Yeah. I think we rely on Hollywood so much for seeing these perfect opportunities or these perfect interactions. But I mean, first of all, they're made up, and second of all, they're like they unfold in the movie. The interactions unfold. They actually like happen in the movie. We don't even allow the interactions to happen. So because we're so like affixed with wanting these interactions to go perfectly and never giving them the opportunity to happen, we never actually get to see what that even looks like. You're just completely, tying yourself down with that.
Yeah, I just thought of something when you mentioned Hollywood. Do you think I think we're trying to create a narrative of this is how I meet someone and start dating them and get into a relationship, and it starts with this. Like, it starts with the perfect crossing where we talk to each other. And then when we miss that opportunity, the perfect opportunity, or when we don't get it, then we're like, okay, then that's not what we're doing. So there is a piece, I think, that's a personal narrative that might be brought in.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I can see people's narratives from Hollywood, playing into that too. I mean, I know that movies have definitely caught me up a lot
Mm-hmm.
in just being authentic in the world, feeling like I have to act more like this guy or act like that person. But yeah, because there's like a somewhat of a cultural standard, I guess, or standards as to how you get into relationships. We have that. That's the place that we're listening from. That's our narrative, and it's so rigid and it's so against the actual nature of attraction and connection that we're just, again, hands tied.
Okay.
So create your own stories by doing is really what is at the heart of that.
Yeah, so for Dylan, I think he needs to reframe what a perfect opportunity means. And I think it should just be an opportunity. Like, if you can talk to someone that you want to talk to, you should talk to them. Like, if it's just, if they're there, if you can talk to them, that's the perfect opportunity.
Or yeah, I like that. Or potentially like what you did with your authentic avatar work, Will, where, basically I had Will create a story about what I call his authentic avatar. And that is a story about how Will interacts in the world authentically with women in all sorts of situations, from the approach to dates to rejection. How does his character basically work through everything in an authentic kind of way? And something Dylan could potentially do is create a authentic avatar statement around how he does approaches and what is his ideal approach. Okay. And really what that's doing is that's defining the kind of approaches that Dylan actually wants. And by doing that, he's going to be contrasting that against approaches that don't work out well. And that basically, when he's able to decipher the difference between those two, he's able to sit and be okay with the fact that some approaches are not going to work out well, and he can be more driven and more clear on the approaches that do go well, because he's going to notice that that's going to create certainty out of uncertainty by doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. I saw someone on Instagram. It was just like it was a reel. I didn't watch the whole thing. I just heard he said when he's nervous about approaching a girl, he just starts walking towards her. And that kind of gets him, like, that does it. That gets him out of this. So I would like to challenge Dylan to try this. Next time you're nervous about talking to someone, just tell yourself, I'm just going to walk towards her. Because that gets
I think it's a great
action state rather than the overthinking, because that's the other problem he's having, is hesitation.
Yeah.
So start walking towards them.
That's a great idea, Will. I love that idea. And also, with that idea, keep in mind that it's okay to turn around if you have to. But the practice should be just taking the steps and moving forward. And in doing that, what you're going to have happen, if you are going to be somebody that's going to maybe be a little more anxious, you're going to notice a whole bunch of stuff coming up. So you're going to the parts of you are going to start like rapping at the door, like turn around, turn around, turn around. And while you're making this walk, notice those things coming up and notice what they're saying and work with them. Work through those kind of messages to the point where you can start to clear them out, and then have an open space for you to go up and just step into the moment.
Yeah. One other thing, we've in our program we kind of talk about like progressive overload. We have like an approach pyramid or exposure pyramid for getting comfortable talking to people at kind of different levels of intimacy. And I think here that idea of progressive overload is perfect, because like you mentioned, let yourself have the space to turn around. If your body is like telling you to stop, and like let yourself do it, but then recognize the fact that you walked towards them was a win. Like that was your first step. You kind of break it into steps. The first step is I have to just walk towards this person, because if you want to talk to someone, you have to be close to them. So first step, walk to them. That's a win. Notice, again, like you said, notice what comes up. And then that's your win for today. Next time, maybe you get closer. Maybe you say something. If you actually, start a conversation. Whatever it is, break it up like that, and don't take turning around as some big loss or some failure.
Right. So yes, I completely agree with you on that. And when it comes to the turning around, the key point that is either going to free you from the situation or is going to keep you in a loop of continually not going through with these things is to not be judgmental, to not beat yourself up if you do turn around, but to be okay with it and to be accepting of it and to know that it's part of the process, and to have empathy for yourself and love for yourself in that moment. If you're not able to do that, that's going to continue the pattern. So
Yep.
the first step is making peace with the fact that you can turn around. And then, as Will is saying, continue to challenge yourself by adding deeper intimacy types of interactions on top of what you're doing.
Right. And look for the win. Like look for like, what did I do well? Because it's hard in this kind of thing to determine like what is a success and what isn't. So try to define it as something I did, better than last time. Maybe it was that you actually noticed what was going on this time. That's a huge win, because that means you're on the path to actually getting through these things. So figure out what the good thing was that you did.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. And on top of that, this is a new relationship you're going to have to develop with yourself. Like, we're sitting here giving you ideas and thoughts and advice, perhaps, but and you can even hire a coach like ourselves to help you with this stuff. But ultimately, you're going to have to be your own coach. Like, we're just modeling how you need to basically be treating yourself here. And if you're not on the field with yourself, on the court with yourself while you're out there, and you're not supporting yourself, you're not cheering yourself on, you're not just acknowledging the fact that you have anxiety and fear, and it's totally fine and totally natural to have that. But if you're not acknowledging all of this kind of stuff with yourself out there, then you're out there on your own. And that's a scary place to be.
Yeah, and you're like split. You're not even your full self, because you're denying parts of yourself that are the nervous, scared parts.
Think about how much more powerful you'd be if you actually had a coach in your fucking head that was with you the entire time. That's an incredible amount of power.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, cool. Okay. So I'm sure we'll hear from Dylan. So Dylan, I would love to hear what you think about all that.
We love you, man. Thanks so much for that question, Dylan.
Yes. Okay, so that's all of our like reactions and responses to everything. So first of all, I wanted to put it out here. I'm going to be doing, for 2024, I'm doing 3 approaches a day on average. So if I miss a day, I'll make it up. For myself, I am going to be doing just approaches of anybody. So they could be people I'm romantically interested in. They could be people I'm not. They could be anybody. So that's going to be my challenge to myself, is 3 people every day. And part of our program is that exactly. That's where I got the idea. And so I just wanted to put that out there. And anybody who's, I don't know, I was just thinking about it today, and like 3 approaches a day for a year is over 1,000 people. That's talking to over 1,000 strangers. And if you talk to 1,000 people, you're going to learn some shit about yourself. There's no way you won't. So I'm pretty pumped about it. And I want to invite, anyone else who's interested in that to try it out.
Yes, man. I'm gonna make sure I hold Will to this, by the way. Let's I'm gonna just send you a video every time of this clip.
Yes, that's it. Please do. I'll appreciate that. I'll be a little mad in the moment, but yeah. Do you have any 2024 goals that you've come up with this? We're recording this on New Year's Eve. I don't know when it will be out, but just so everyone's clear.
Yeah. I'm definitely on board with you. I am recently single, so I will essentially be doing the same thing as Will in this situation.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Dude, for some reason I'm more scared of talking to people I'm not interested in. Because I've been doing this for a bit now, and And I feel like there's so many things I can learn from people, but I haven't but I just give myself the excuse every time. Like there could be someone I might want to talk to, but I'm like, oh, I'm not attracted to them. And then I have that excuse not to. So I just haven't been, but I don't let myself have that excuse if I am attracted to them. So that's a piece of it. So I'm excited to get more into just talking to people, just to see what I can, find out about them or learn or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I wanted to just isolate that for a quick minute. So that's this whole thing of like wanting to go and talk to somebody that only if you find them attractive. That has gotten caught in my wheel spokes a number of times, a lot of times actually, and the practice of doing this, let's talk about the impact as far as how this helps you really connect with the actual people that you actually want to connect with. Because if you set a standard, if you set a precedence in the world where you're approaching everybody the same, then you're creating an adapted comfort to those what most people would consider high stress interactions. Now, if you're approaching women that you're not attracted to a lot, you eventually kind of create a very comfortable way of interacting with pretty much anyone in that situation. So that when somebody that you see in your mind as being like a high stakes interaction, like, oh man, if she doesn't want to interact with me, then I'm gonna be bummed. If you see somebody like that, and you might have those feelings still come up, your normal automatic social mode will be at a place that is so comfortable, so confident, because you've just been doing it nonstop, practicing it nonstop with everyone. Yeah. So you get to have that spread of connections that are available now.
Yeah, it's also just more realistic timing wise. Like the amount of, not timing, but the amount of time spent. If you are looking for people you're attracted to, that's going to take a lot more time than if you're open to talking to more people. And so for me, like if I'm like 3 a day, people I'm attracted to, I'm probably going to burn out because it's going to be so much time. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. And one other thing I just want to add is that the other thing that really is at the core of this is that we feel like our interactions with strangers are supposed to be different than our interactions with people that we're comfortable with. And right there is where all the awkwardness comes from. Because if you just heard what I said, like, strangers' interactions are supposed to be different than people that we're comfortable with. Well, if we're able to talk to strangers 3 times a day, every day out of the year, we'll eventually become comfortable with that. So, that essentially enables us to basically interact with strangers like we would act with our friends. That's how it evolves.
Yeah, and you totally can bring in the friend. I mean, we talk about this all the time, but like cultivating that space, like go in to an interaction with a stranger as if like he's your buddy. Like it's going to make it, you're going to automatically be comfortable as soon as you think, oh, this guy's my friend.
Yeah, that's like a shortcut. And it's always available. You don't have to do 1,000 interactions a year to be able to get to that space if you want to.
It's just there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, 2024, big things. One other thing I want to say for this podcast, I wanted to put out a goal of 52 episodes. So 1 a week, every week.
52 episodes.
Let's do it.
I'm down for that. Y'all down for that?
Hopefully people aren't yelling no right now. Like, no, stop. Okay. So One of our we have a couple things we want to talk about, but we one thing was my kind of where I'm at in dating and where I have been in the past. Basically, right now, me and Tim have talked about this a ton. I am, dating kind of freely right now, not really looking to get into a relationship of a, like a monogamous relationship. And this has come from a place of freedom, basically, and also a little bit of mistrust in myself, just because in the past I've gone into things too quickly where I end up in something that I feel I'm settling. And it's not that I'm settling for the other person, I'm just settling for this like relationship that I'm not happy with. And so in a way I'm trying to protect myself from that. And so we wanted to talk about how to kind of date freely and how to navigate that and not get into things too quickly. And this fits perfectly with that Reddit story. I didn't even realize till we were talking about it. So let's talk about how to date in a smart way. If, my end goal is to get into a relationship, like a marriage, kids, all of that. That's down the road for me, but that's, my end goal. So Tim, I would love to hear your thoughts on like we talked about devotion versus commitment, why we commit, what's a good reason to commit, what's not. And then, having that period of dating and letting that play itself out without jumping too quickly.
Yeah, great, Will. Thank you so much. I just want to make an addendum to something you said. From what I've heard from you and what you've expressed to me, it's not only that you want to date freely, but you also want to date intentionally. And that's really what is at the core of this discussion. So it's not just about you, being able to just go on dates with whoever you want. Like, you're actually really trying to find authentic connections in this world, and also work on yourself to be able to receive those kind of connections too. So this is very much a it's a boot camp of some sort that you're going through, where you really want to explore love, explore authentic connections, and to be very intentional about that. And I think everybody that's being serious about dating needs to consider being of that kind of mindset, because we hate dating because we're afraid of uncertainty, and we have all the reasons to be afraid of that. It's totally human to be that way. Once we start dating, we start finding somebody that we kind of connect with. We want to get rid of that uncertainty as soon as possible. So we end up getting into committed relationships. Mm-hmm. So we're thrown into the fire, and as soon as we find a way out with one person, we're like, let's get me out of here. I can't stand this. But we're totally, then no wonder we get into relationship after relationship that just repeats our own trauma, because we're not focused on that at the beginning. And the thing that I see time and time again in my relationships and other people's relationships that I know is that if you don't start things off on the right note, then you end up having a sour rest of the show. So what you're doing, Will, I acknowledge that, and I think that what you're doing is fantastic. It's harder for people in this culture to really grasp that. And that's why it's really important that if you are trying to intentionally date, that you're very clear about that. And again, it's smart. You're really like, we were talking earlier about this subject, and we were talking about how it is a minefield that you have to walk through when you're dealing with the experience of the sort of lustful honeymoon kind of stage of a relationship, mm-hmm. with the value connected relationship that you ultimately desire. Okay. Now, being intentional about dating and giving yourself that space and that freedom in these dating relationships, I'm going to call them. They're not actually committed, but you maybe are going on multiple dates with somebody. But having the right framework to set it up for exploration instead of security is going to be the key to your success later down the road, if any of those relationships actually do develop, because you're going to give yourself the amount of time to work through the lustful, easy answer, like no doubt I want to be with you kind of lustful emotions that come up. You're going to be able to work through those, enjoy those, but as you continue on, you're going to start the value related aspects of that relationship are going to be also are going to be able to be addressed, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's like braving that first wave. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. So what I was recommending to Will was to consider the idea of these dating relationships. Again, not anybody that you've committed to, but you're in a consecutive stream of dating, to treat them under the umbrella of the word devotion. So devotion is not commitment, perhaps. Devotion's more about a focus and an attention on the actual dates that you get to go on. So if you're somebody that's wanting to intentionally date and you're dating multiple partners, consider the idea of setting up a space of devotion, clearly communicating what this devotion actually means. And really what it means is that when y'all are together, y'all are the only two people there. You're not looking over your shoulder at other women. She's not looking over her shoulder. And the dates that you plan are very intentional, very thoughtful, and very very mindful. So when you're on these when you're in the moments of the dates, when you're spending time with the person, you're feeling that sense of commitment. Outside of that, they can do what they want to do, you can do what you want to do. If you're, if the issue of like sexual promiscuity, or if issues with sex come in, like if say you're like having unprotected sex with one of your people, there might have to be boundaries made with other people, or ultimately I think that you really need to kind of figure out what kind of sexual relationship you're going to be having with some of these dating relationships that are going to allow for the most freedom for everybody. So maybe that requires you to be protected. Maybe that requires you to even, I don't know, maybe not have full blown sex. I don't know. That's kind of like that's a tricky area there. But as far as the time you're spending, as far as the activities you're doing, under the veil of devotion is going to just really allow you to be super present, to be to allow you to enjoy them, but also to allow for deeper things to occur. If they're going to. The problem is that when we start flirting with the idea of commitment, we're essentially setting up a fence around this whatever this is that we're having, and we do it because we want certainty. And as if you start doing that early on in relationships, then think about how small that fence might actually be, because there was never any real room for y'all to experience each other with freedom attached. Like the whole reason that you are so interesting and vibrant on these first dates is because you have freedom behind you. As soon as you close those doors, you just shrivel up.
Yeah. And it's like as soon as you get in that commitment, it almost feels like I mean, this doesn't have to be the case, but it feels like you are locked into the person you came in as. Which is similar to that freedom thing. Like you lose the ability, you do get a little bit fenced in. Which again,
let me say one thing about that real quick, Will.
Mm-hmm.
Can I have to point out what you're saying there. That's really good. So it kind of freezes you into place and time, right? At the beginning, like you were saying. And if you just think about how we're on our first few dates with somebody, we're so well behaved and we're so like trying to, you know, really bring our best and not bring in any of our other bullshit. So you commit somebody at the early stages of that relationship, they have this idea of somebody that they're seeing later down the line as being completely full of shit. Because like the way they presented themselves, what they committed to is not what they're getting after that.
Yeah, which is
It's crazy how that works.
I would recommend people bring in a little bit of bullshit in your first couple dates. I think it's not a
Well, I would be careful with that. I think really what you're talking about though is bring the vulnerability in. You know, like talk about struggles that you've had. Talk about things that you're working through. Bring your full self. Don't bring your struggles to get validation on whether you're right or wrong or good or bad, but bring in the struggles that you face to just give them a sense of what you're all about. You know, vulnerability is the deep, transparent expression of what we truly are without the need to be validated about it. As soon as you start wanting to get validation with vulnerability, you're basically trying to run some kind of racket. You're trying to manipulate people. So it's just a you know, here it is. Here's what I am. When you start to like find people that overshare, they're dumping all this stuff, and you're actually feel like really what their intention in doing that, even though it's subconscious, is to try to, you know, to manipulate you, see if you'll run away, like to test you. So yeah, there's so many pitfalls with actually being able to express vulnerability. All right, well, that about wraps it up for us today. Got to get moving. Thank you all so much for joining us. Again, we are the Art of Approach. You can find more information about us on www.theartofapproach.com, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.